This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
Yet again, here we are. Another depressing loss, this time against the Indianapolis Colts. We have a lot of thoughts on that game, but first I'll tell you, as I always do, about Prize Picks. Download that app today. Use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. Again, that code is CLNS. And then also don't forget Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Of course, it's the holiday season. Maybe you want to buy some tickets for a friend or family. You can download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Greg, I want to start with Jerod Mayo and a bigger picture kind of look at Mayo and something that he continues to do, and it bothers me. I don't know if it bothers you, but he keeps saying, if it wasn't for this, then that. If it wasn't for this, then that. Against Houston, if it wasn't for two 50-plus yard runs, the run defense would have been fine. If it wasn't for that Miami game, we'd be playing much better lately. Of course, now, this past game, it was, well, if you take out the 19-play game-winning drive plus the 2-point conversion, the defense wasn't really that bad. Your thoughts on this approach, thought process, and the fact that Mayo says these things out loud?
It's a really good question, Nick. Just in general about like what Mayo says, and you might know this because you have your ears perked up around the league a little bit more than I do come, Mondays and Tuesdays and things like that. But like, is there any other coach in the league that says things on Sunday that he walks back on Monday? I mean, it's not every week, but it seems like it's every week. And this week it was the Seattle Super Bowl comment, and he walked that back. I shouldn't have said that. We know all the things that he said. I mean, going back to, we're going to burn some cash and all that stuff. I don't understand. I don't understand the excuse making that he seems to want and getting. I think I understand that he wants to, illustrate that he's doing a good job and the team is getting better. I know the offense is getting better. They have been better of late, and they're doing some things and, set a season high for yards. And, we all know the points they left on the field. But yeah, I don't see it how it benefits the team at all to talk this way, that, if we would have done this, if we just would have done this a little bit better, then everything is roses and smelling great. But the bottom line is this team looks, unless they get a surprise in the final 4 weeks, that they are going to finish 3-14. It'll be the lowest win total since 1992, Dick McPherson. And to me, it's a huge step back from where they even were last year. I mean, I expected the team with a new quarterback, with a new head coach, especially one on the defensive side of the ball. I expected them to be, a couple of games better this year than they were last year, and that doesn't look like it's going to happen.
One more thing on those kinds of comments when he tries to say, well, if this didn't happen, like, yeah, I get it. It did happen. So I'm not sure why it matters, because in reality, it did happen, Jerod. And the fact that you gave up the 250-plus yard runs against Houston means your run defense was bad. The fact that you had the Miami game means that your team has not been playing some of its best football recently. The fact that you gave up the 19-play game-winning drive along with a 2-point conversion means your defense was not good enough on Sunday, period, point, end of sentence. Another thing, though, our friend Andrew Callahan at the Herald, I thought he brought up a very interesting point. I wanted to ask you about it. Andrew pointed out that the vast majority of those kinds of comments, if not all of them, is defense related. And I have to ask you, and Andrew made the point of when Jerod's been asked about the offense, he hasn't always had these kinds of comments. He's held the offensive guys more accountable and more responsible for things that they mess up on. First, do you agree with that? Because I do. Secondly, could we read into that and say it's because of his close relationship with DeMarcus Covington and the fact that he did not have a relationship with Alex Van Pelt before Van Pelt was brought in?
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it, but I think Andrew brings up a valid point, and I would say, yeah, that is true. I don't think he's as tough on the defense as he is on the offense. But I will tell you, like, this isn't new for Mayo. Some of the things that irked people behind the scenes last year when they were on staff was, from what I understand, and I've been told this from multiple people, is that Mayo crapped on the offense during even like full coach meetings. Like he would talk about how, I don't know about what's going on the other side of the ball, but we're all good on our side of the ball, and that did not go over well with his fellow coaches on that staff, and so it just makes you it makes you worry, long term and going forward in the future. Is that is Jerod looking with a critical eye on all aspects of football operations, his coaching staff, what's going on with his team, or is he afraid to, it's not only is he afraid to throw his good friend DeMarcus Covington under the bus, but that would be further indicting his own ability coming up as a defensive player and a defensive coach, that they can't even get that side of the ball straightened out. And I would say that if you look at this team as a whole, Nick, I'm sure you would agree that probably the most disappointing aspect of this team this season has been the performance of the defense. And I'm not saying last year's defense was great, finished 9th in DVOA, which is good. And I would say that's about right. I would say they were certainly like top 15, probably somewhere in the 10 to 15 range last year. And they didn't have a lot of the pieces that they have now. And of course they're missing some of the pieces that they did have. But when we looked at this team coming into the season, we figured, all right, well, the defense will hold its own, will buy this team time for the quarterback situation to get straightened out, to Alex Van Pelt for his scheme to start to take hold a little bit, which is what we're seeing in the second half of the season, that they are getting better. But it's just the defense just can't make any plays. I mean, I know they got 2 interceptions on Sunday, but that was mostly Anthony Richardson being Anthony Richardson, and not really, I wouldn't say the Patriots like forcing his hand. And they're just not making enough plays to get off the field, especially in crucial times. And that really goes to both sides of the ball.
Couple things. Start with the defense. I would say that, what's frustrating is Christian Gonzalez is playing like a legitimate number 1 outside corner, a guy who can shut down many receivers and limit some of the best receivers that are in the game. He's played like that all year long. He's mostly been terrific. And the fact that you have a corner playing that well and playing a lot of man coverage, the fact that the rest of your secondary can't figure it out is truly an indictment on both the secondary, but especially the coaching. Number 2, Alex Van Pelt. Here's my concern about the relationship between Mayo and Covington, aside from the things that you just brought up, Greg. I'm concerned that this team is going to finish 3-14 or 4-13, and they're going to need a scapegoat. And even against everybody else's, wisdom of watching this team, and we'll get into it in a little bit about the offense continuing to improve, that Van Pelt might end up being the scapegoat because Mayo doesn't want to look bad. He doesn't want to make his guy Covington look bad. And you end up getting rid of who I think has been the best coach on this team. That's my concern, is that relationship goes further into the offseason decision-making process. And again, it's a hypothetical, but if that were to happen, I would lose my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can get into the Van Pelt discussion sort of after the season. I need to see the full thing, and I really want to see how this offense functions down the stretch against Gannon, McDermott twice, Minter with the Chargers. I mean, offense not so hot in Miami, where Miami pressures a little bit more, plays a little bit more man. Against the Rams and the Colts, both play sort of zone. They don't really have good cornerbacks, don't really blitz a lot. Like, okay, yeah, it's better. But, your overarching sort of point, I understand it. I agree with it. I just, Nick, we're hearing more and more about like, oh, well, they're going to do more to support Mayo. And, how do they do that? And like, if that's the direction that they're going to go, which it looks like it is, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how that ever works. I don't know if I've ever heard of that working in the National Football League where, what all of a sudden they're going to bring in some veteran coaches, put more cooks in the kitchen. I just, the direction that this coaching staff goes, I'm not optimistic about it.
When I talk about Van Pelt, I want to make it clear it's all relative. And Van Pelt compared to the other coaches, what I mean is if he's the dude that ends up being first in the firing line because of relationships, when the other coaches have clearly been worse than him, that to me is a problem. And as far as the Miami game, it's a fair point about waiting to see against better defenses and all of that. Fair point by you. I think the Miami game was more behind the chains, and then you got down big, and then what the hell else are you supposed to do? I mean, that entire first half, you're playing 2nd and 15, 2nd and 20, 3rd and 17, the penalties and all of that. And some of that, of course, is on Van Pelt, the offensive penalties. But, as a play caller, I don't know how much to take out of that game given the circumstances. All right. You mentioned the games, that you thought that the Patriots would be at least a couple of games better than last year. You have officially, you let me know, added to your list of winnable games after Sunday.
Yeah, add it to the list. You got Seattle, the Dolphins with Huntley, Jaguars, Titans, Rams, Dolphins, Colts. Really, you look at that group and Seattle and the Rams, Seattle's 18th in DVOA right now. The Rams are now 16th. At the time you played them, they were 21st. So they've been climbing a little bit. But, to me, this is another in a long line of winnable games for this team. And to me, again, this is I just watched this game, and to me, it goes to coaching. Like they have to figure out a way in the crucial moments to get a play on both sides of the ball. I mean, after the Gonzalez interception, that drive, the 2 runs and a sack where it was obvious that May was told, if you don't have anything, get down, keep the clock running, where really the focus should have been, we need 20 yards to get a field goal and ice this game. That's what we're doing. I wouldn't have minded a mentality where Mayo said, look, we're going for it because they got the ball at midfield. We're going for it because even if we don't get it, if they go down and score, it'll leave us with more time, that sort of thing. And then, defensively, like you said, 20 plays, 19 plays, a 2-point conversion, 3 fourth downs. In those moments where the game is going to be decided, you need a high level of execution. I understand that. It might not always be there for the Patriots, but those play callers, they gotta have something in reserve. Gotta have it moments. This is what we're gonna do. Designer pressure, designer coverage, something we haven't shown before. Something offensively, especially, I don't know, using Drake Maye's athleticism to your benefit in crucial moments. And to me, they just continually come up short in those areas, and that's why this team is staring 3-14 in their face.
I said this on Black Friday morning doing the show on 98.5 with Alex Barth. People continue to do the black or white thing, coaching or talent. How about both? The talent has not been very good. We know that this roster is not very talented, but even with average coaching, I think you've had 6 or 7 winnable games on this schedule, the way these games have played out. And are you going to win all of those games? Of course not. But should you have 5 wins, 4 or 5 wins at this point? Abso-freaking-lutely. And that part is about the coaching. If you had better talent, then you might have had 10 winnable games on this schedule or 9 winnable games. Because of the lack of talent, you have 6 to 7 winnable games, and you've won half of those. Not good enough. Too many games that are there for you to win, and because of bad decisions, they don't actually go in the win column. The upcoming schedule is no joke. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, more next week. But I wanted to get your thoughts, Greg, on the field goal versus Hail Mary decision.
Yeah, let's get into that as soon as I tell everybody about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game.
Hail Mary field goal. What'd you make of it?
It's 51-49. I just wanted to look back for a second. So the Patriots got the ball back with 12 seconds left. They tried the deeper shot to Hunter Henry that got tipped away at the last second. That was almost a really nice play at midfield. I think I would have gone with the Hail Mary. I mean, what the hell? I mean, a 68-yard field goal has never been made in a game, let alone in the elements in New England. And you have, Drake Maye who can run around, who can throw. Jaden Daniels pulled it off. Who knows? I mean, Drake Maye has pulled plays out of his rear end. Look at the Titans game. And I wouldn't say that the Colts are known as to be the smartest team in the world. So, I would have liked to have seen Drake air it out there. But I think, sort of my bigger takeaway is, so they have 12 seconds left. And I should go back and look at what the Chiefs did against the Bills with their 13 seconds in the AFC Championship game. Like, I would have liked the Hunter Henry play. So they did 11 yards, 9 yards. One problem was they didn't have all 3 timeouts. So maybe that's why they went for the deeper shot. But I would have loved to have seen three of those Hunter Henry plays in succession. And then you're talking about a realistic shot at a field goal. The problem was they only had 2 timeouts left. I did not like Mayo taking that timeout. And when in the press box, when I saw it, the play clock was at 1 when he took the timeout. The Colts didn't know what they were doing. I'm sure Steichen would have taken a timeout, but I don't know. He's one of these play callers like a Mike McDaniel. I see them get delay of games all the time where you're like, why didn't they take a timeout? But at least they're taking the timeout. Even if the Colts snap it, they're discombobulated. Like and then after the game, or was it after the game? Yeah, it was after the game when he talked about the Seattle Super Bowl.
Oh, God.
He compared it to that. And when actually Mayo did the opposite of what Bill did in the Seattle game. And, he was injured at the time. He wasn't on the coaching staff. And he took ownership of it. It was similar to the Matt Patricia comment when he was in Detroit. I just didn't like how, just like the end of the first half, and we've seen this repeatedly, I thought the Patriots managed the game at the end of the first half terribly, and I thought they managed the end of the game terribly.
All right. A couple things. Going back to that Buffalo Bills Kansas City game, end of regulation, when Kansas City kicked the field goal, they had 13 seconds to drive, which a lot of people forget that that game was so bananas. The Chiefs scored a 75-yard touchdown drive in 52 seconds. Buffalo came back and scored a 75-yard touchdown drive in 49 seconds. And then you had the 13-second field goal drive by Kansas City. That all happened in like the final 2 minutes of that football game in regulation. But here's what they did. 1st and 10, Kansas City 25, Mahomes to Tyreek Hill for 19 yards. Timeout by Kansas City with 8 seconds left. That was Kansas City's first timeout, so they had all 3. Then for some reason, Buffalo called the timeout. That was their 3rd and final timeout. They called that after the Kansas City timeout. Then it was 1st and 10 at the Kansas City 44. Mahomes to Kelsey for 25 yards. Timeout number 2 by Kansas City with 3 seconds left. So Kansas City did not even have to use all 3 of their timeouts because after that 25-yard play to Kelsey, that got them to the Buffalo 31. Butker hits the 49-yard field goal to send it into overtime. So that's how that played out.
Interesting.
As far as the Super Bowl 49 comments, look, he walked it back again. One of multiple comments that he walked back. Said he was frustrated. I get it. It's a human emotion. But you bringing that up is just, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous in so many different ways. I look back, Greg, that defense in 2014, right? That Super Bowl winning defense, their red zone defense in the NFL that season was ranked 6th. They had almost a top 5 red zone defense. So you're trusting your red zone defense as much as you're trusting Pete Carroll melting down in that moment. You want to know why? Because you had Brandon Browner, Darrelle Revis, you had Malcolm Butler, Arrington, you had Devin McCourty, you had Patrick Chung. You had a secondary full of veterans, really good veterans, that were on the same page with communication, didn't blow multiple red zone coverages, which we saw again earlier in this game. It's a completely different scenario. Indianapolis just in that game at that point was 2 for 3 in the red zone before that final drive. Also, how about giving your defense a little bit of a rest? Call a timeout. Let them take a breather. Call a timeout before the big 4th and 3 play after you didn't challenge the catch, right? I mean, there were so many things in that drive, but the Super Bowl 49 thing was just outrageous. Let's look at the offense, Greg. May, was this Drake Maye's best start yet?
Yeah, it was. I wouldn't say like by far, because I mean it was my highest rated game for May. It was my highest rated quarterback. It just edged out Jacoby Brissett in Week 1 against the Bengals, and that is even with me putting the interception to Hunter Henry on Drake Maye. The way I saw that play, and the coach's film gives you a good angle at it. I mean, it's just, Hunter Henry he's setting up, and he knows the linebacker is on his right, so he's sort of leaning on his left leg, like expecting the ball should be like right here. That's ideally it should have been on his back shoulder, his left shoulder, and May throws a fastball sort of knee level, just outside his body. Like, when you're expecting a pass that way, when you're sort of leaning that way, and then it comes back the other way, it's a tough catch. But, overall, I thought, like the grade even came out, with the interception. I thought May was really good in this game. We talked going into this game, and both things sort of came to be true. It wasn't quite Drake Maye's coming out party. It was pretty damn good. And we talked going in. I said, if they win this game, it's because Drake Maye owns Gus Bradley's cover 3 defense, which he did, largely for the most part. But also, if they lose this game, then we're probably going to be talking about Anthony Richardson's athletic ability, how they embrace his running ability, and how the Patriots just don't with Drake Maye. And I think both were true in this game. I thought, I don't need to see Drake Maye. I don't need to see a bunch of designed runs for Drake Maye. But when you get into gotta have it situations, goal to go, which they sucked at in this game, game on the line, whether it's, before halftime or after the Gonzalez interception, like you got to incorporate Drake Maye's legs into that. It gives you another weapon. It's hard for the defense. I mean, look at what the Patriots did with Richardson, how many difficulties they had with that. But back to your point, I thought Drake was really good. I mean, obviously the Hooper touchdown pass was awesome. I thought the Hunter Henry third down pass when the Rams brought a blitz was great. He had an in-cut to Kendrick Bourne where it looked like he was well schooled this week, and I think they probably drew a lot from the Rams game, similar to sort of zone-based scheme, where they told Drake, like, you're going to have openings, but you're going to have to be quick and decisive, and you're going to have to hold the linebackers. And one time he looked left, knowing that Bourne was coming on an in-cut, and so he looked left and just let it go and barely beat the linebacker. Those types of plays were high level. I do think that a little bit more problems with pressure in this game. I put 2 sacks on him and a hurry. I thought that the sack on third down after the Gonzalez drive, Kendrick Bourne was open. I don't know. He was looking I'm not sure who was along the sideline. I don't know if it was Booty or Douglas, but that's where he wanted to go at first. But he saw the cornerback creeping behind, which was wise. But if pre-snap, if he thought that Bourne was going to be his guy, he had him there. They get it. They convert. They're in field goal range, and they end up with a sack. And that's just that wasn't a great play.
Alex Van Pelt, to me, has improved big picture throughout the year. A lot of stuff has gotten better for him and the offense. Drake Maye has played some of his best football lately. But there's one thing that bothers me with Van Pelt, and it's very frustrating, and that is situational play calling. And you touched on it a little bit just a moment ago with the Drake Maye designed runs, which I agree with you 100% about. But 2 things. Number one, the conservative nature. End of the half, 41 seconds. You're at the Indianapolis 11. You've got a first down. You got 2 timeouts. You go run, timeout. Everything's now on the third down. I just thought that was way too conservative given the situation. The Gonzalez interception. Some might say, well, Nick, I don't think it was too conservative. That's okay. I can live with that at the end of the half. I don't think I can live with what happened after that Gonzalez interception. The fact that you run the football under center, Drake Maye, Stevenson, 2 yards. Then you come right back with pretty much the same damn play from my eyes. I mean, it could be blocked differently and all of that. But again, you give it to Stevenson on 2nd and 8. He loses 4 yards. And now you have to have Drake Maye see the play that you talk about instead of taking the sack. It's way too conservative, Greg. It was way too predictable. And the way that Drake Maye was playing, it's not a bad idea to give this young man a shot to make some damn plays when you need some damn plays to be made.
I 100% agree with you. And that's what I wrote my column on after the game, which was, look, this team it was 3-9 at the time. Now they're 3-10. And just what's the harm in letting Drake Maye just put the game in his hands in the crucial situations? I don't know what they're afraid of, Nick. Maybe you have some theories, but I just don't understand it because to me, first of all, especially at the end of the first half, I mean, I think Maye was he's 12 of 15 or 12 of 16 for 180 yards at that point. He was carving them up and we just know Drake, number one, he's physically tough enough. He is mentally tough enough. He is resilient as hell. He doesn't let mistakes fester. He doesn't let mistakes of his own teammates affect him. He learns from things. For example, this is just a very minor thing, but you remember the first play of the game when he threw a 5-yard out to Kendrick Bourne, and they completed it for 5 yards, and it was well placed by Maye. Good catch by Kendrick Bourne. But that play was harder than it needed to be because Drake was late on it. He was a half a beat late. He just should have been back foot, boom, as soon as just throw. Later on in the game, he had the same play. I think it was to Booty, and it was much easier because May threw it on time. And like, that's just an example to show you how this kid learns, like even within a game, and how he improves even within a game. And for them to turtle, and I will say in Van Pelt's defense a little bit, the second down run after the Gonzalez interception, I'm pretty sure that May checked into that play. There are ways to safeguard against that, but you just can't be coming out and running on those first two downs. I put the ball in the kid's hands. Again, I said this earlier. If I was Mayo after the Gonzalez interception, I would have been like, we are going for the jugular here. You need 3 points. You need 20 yards and 3 points, and the game's over. We're winning the game here. We're not leaving until we win this game. I don't care if it takes us four downs, AVP. This is what we're doing. Go for it. Put the all gas, no brake. Instead, this coaching staff is all brake, no gas, especially when the game is on the line, and you wonder why they're 3-10.
Yeah, you ask why would Van Pelt, why is the feeling that way? Why do they approach things that way? I think it comes from the top. I think it comes from your head coach who wants to define this team by running the football. We're going to win by run game and defense, and you're not defending. Your run game's been up and down. The best thing about your team right now is your quarterback, and you're not trusting him enough. I think it's also clock management at the end of games, at the end of half. I think Mayo is slightly shook with those kinds of things, and he might even be second-guessing himself now at this point because he's had so many examples of not handling it the right way. To answer your question about Drake Maye's first half, by the way, I looked at my notes from the game. 17 of 20 for $169 and a touchdown. So, yeah, I think he was pretty good in that first half. Quickly, just two more things on the offense. Red zone problems. I don't know if you want to add to this, Greg, but it's obvious they're 5 for their last 15 in the red zone as far as finishing those drives with touchdowns. A bunch of issues. I know we all focus on the offensive line. And yes, the offensive line back-to-back holds from the 2-yard line obviously cost you 4 points. Obviously brutal and inexcusable. But I'll tell you what, they got bigger problems in the red zone, okay? They've got spacing problems with their receivers. They've got predictability problems when it comes to play calling. They've got some issues, Greg, in the red zone, and Van Pelt so far has not proven that he can figure those problems out.
Yeah, I did not like their red zone approach in this game, and I don't know if he just like there was one where, and I'm sure Kendrick Bourne ran the wrong route, but they had like 3 or 4 guys running, crossing routes.
Yeah.
And it looked like that was for man-to-man, where the Rams, the Colts, I'm getting, because they almost play similar schemes. The Colts were just like dropping a bunch of guys into the end zone. And that play took way too long. The throw to Henry, that's actually the type of throws you needed more like, hey, hit a running back in the flat, some sort of bubble or something like that. Like those are the things that you needed to do against the Colts in this game. And I just did not like their red zone package at all. And especially like if you don't make May's legs a threat with RPOs or whatever, the defense is going to have an advantage down there, and just not imaginative enough for me in terms of their red zone package.
All right, before we get to the terrible defense, tell the people about Game Time.
Game Time is an app that you have to download. You want to go to events. I was just looking. My wife and I are going to a concert on Sunday night.
Nice.
Into the bye week, and I went to Game Time. It was so easy. Love the all-in pricing. Looking forward to that. I used Game Time Picks. It filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Love the all-in pricing. I always toggle that feature because I don't want to get those stupid fees at the end where it doubles your ticket, and you're just like, holy cow, I got to sell a kidney just to go to this event. Seat views, get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
I'm taking advantage of the bye week too. Saturday night, checking it off my bucket list. Kelly and I are going to go see Seinfeld at Foxwoods.
Oh, wow. We did that. We did that once back in the day in Palm Beach County. It was good.
I'm very excited about that. All right. I'm not excited to talk about the defense, but here we are. 19-play drive. What the hell happened?
19 play drive. What happened? It's just, I don't know. They just can't make any plays. I mean, they just don't make enough negative plays. Richardson obviously presents some difficulties. I thought they were soft against the run all day. They were obviously worried about Richardson's legs. The Colts came out after halftime and just ran the ball down their throats, similar to that Dolphins game that they lost against Snoop Huntley.
Yep.
I said to Giardi at some point in the first half, I said, if I were the Colts, I wouldn't pass again. Like, I just run the 6-back offense with Anthony Richardson, and the Patriots had, no answer for it. It's inexcusable. 19 plays plus the 2-point conversion, not to be able to get off the field. And here's my bigger issue with a couple things that's my issue with this defense. Remember before the season when they traded Matthew Judon and people are like, oh, where's the pass rush going to come from? And you remember Jerod Mayo said this. He said, we've gone years without having a premier pass rusher, Chandler Jones, the Judons of the world, but we were able to manufacture pass rush through our stunts and games and our game planning. Basically, he was saying they were going to do that again. How's that going so far this year? How's the game planning, the stunts and the games and, the pressures and all that? They haven't been able to do that at all. And they just can't get off. They can't get off the field. And, they're starting to get near full health. Barmore has multiple games. Peppers was back. Oh, the other thing I was going to say is, and you mentioned it earlier, just busts every week. Just multiple busts in every game when, in years past, you'd get like 1, 2, or 3 a year. Now it's a couple a game. And that's just a horrible indictment on the coaches, the players, everybody. That's been probably the biggest problem with this defense this year. Lack of making big plays and way too many coverage busts.
What's driven me crazy? What's driven me crazy is the inability for DeMarcus Covington to slow down the one thing you have to slow down. And what I mean by that is, last week he says, we've got to trap Anthony Richardson. We've got to keep him in the pocket. Did they do a good job of that? No. You got to slow down his ability to run the football. He had 9 carries for 48 yards. Now, that doesn't sound like a ton, but soul-crushing moments, Greg. 3rd and 1 on the second drive, 13-yard run because your edge just completely is not there, gets wiped away. 1st and goal, touchdown run. On the game-winning drive, 4th and 3, have to have it. Extends, Jabril Peppers is there. He finds Mo Alley Cox for the first down. 4th and 2, later on the game-winning drive. Left end for 6 yards, running the football. The 2-point conversion, yes, the Patriots got hosed. Yes, Barmore got held, and also you had the high-low block combination. But they just weren't ready to slow things down there. As far as the pass rush, Matthew Judon was not going to be the great panacea, folks. If you haven't paid attention, and you probably haven't because I don't know how much Falcons football you watch, I love Matthew Judon, but Judon looks cooked. He looks cooked. So he has 2.5 sacks this year for Atlanta in 12 games. He had 4 sacks last year for the Patriots in 4 games. He has 19 quarterback pressures. 19 pressures in 12 games. Last year, he had 14 pressures in 4 games. He looks dunzo. It's actually one of the best moves Wolf made in an offseason that doesn't look too great. Kyle Duggar, Greg, before we get to your ups and downs, he was bad again. What the hell is happening?
Yeah, I don't know. I was talking to somebody about this today, and I'm sure the ankle is bothering him. But really, it's not so much the physical play. He's a day late and $1 short on everything. He loses his focus. He's not there. On the game-winning or game-tying touchdown, Jabril Peppers needs to help him out. And, like Tavai, somebody ran across Tavai's face and he knocked him over, and he knocked him really off his route. The guy goes by Jabril Peppers and he just like swipes at the guy, misses him. But of course, Duggar is a step behind. But the person I was talking to today, they wondered, like, you know, is a situation where Duggar needed like a guy like McCourty to sort of be his guide and keep him in tuned and on top of things, and he doesn't have that anymore. It's been bad. The last 2 weeks have been really bad. You know, you look at a lot of these guys, Nick, and we're going to get into this when I give my ups and downs. But I will say Owenu was pretty good in this game. He did have that one stuff. But, you know, as far as the year on the whole, you're talking about guys like some of the guys you gave extension to. Duggar, Owenu, Stevenson in this game was terrible. He left so many yards on the field. We talked about it last week. We said, when are we going to start having the conversation that Gibson is much better in the scheme? He's much more comfortable than Stevenson, giving him more reps. This was a game that called out for it. You know, you look at these guys that they extended, and those guys were supposed to be the bedrock for your team, and they've underperformed this year, and you wonder where you are.
The Mondre stuff drives me nuts, and I'm a fan of Mondre, but my freaking goodness, Antonio Gibson, we say it almost every week. He's one of your most explosive players on offense. He had 62 yards on 7 carries. He scored a touchdown on a play that, according to ESPN Analytics, had a 2% chance of being a touchdown because he's good at what he does. He's another one that's one of the best moves that, you know, Elliott Wolf made in an offseason that doesn't look good. And he had 17 snaps on Sunday, 17 snaps when he's playing as well as he's playing. He's a really good receiver. He played wide receiver back in the day, and he has 0 targets on Sunday, and they really haven't used him in the passing game aside from like 2 or 3 screens this year. The usage of Antonio Gibson drives me up a freaking wall. All right, we'll get to the ups and downs first. Try out BSJ, $50 for the year. You know the deal. Prize Picks. CLNS is that code, $50 instantly when you play $5. And, of course, Game Time. Greg just told you about them. Code CLNS, $20 off your first purchase. Ups and downs, Greg.
Yeah, I was just looking. Stevenson got the only 3 targets for running backs in this game. And, you know, you think back to, this is a similar scheme that, you know, Dan Quinn ran with the Falcons in that Super Bowl. And you think about, you know, all what James White did in that game. Like, this should have, especially in the red zone, they should have used Gibson as a weapon out of the backfield. That would have helped, and they just didn't do that. Offensively, guys that I liked, Antonio Gibson, number 1. He's my first up. Drake Maye, number 2. I thought Hooper was good. I thought Henry was good, especially in the run game. Ben Brown was the top player on the offensive line. I actually thought the offensive line as a whole, you know, look, outside the penalties, and some of those are a little bit iffy. Sometimes, you know, you get the quarterback running around you, you get called for a hold. Those are tough circumstances. I would say, you know, I would say outside of Layden Robinson, the offensive line was good as a whole. Defensively, I liked Keon White. Barmore, I thought, got back in the swing of things. Gonzalez was good in this game. Marcus Jones. Alex Austin, until, you know, he would have been like a top up until he got that DPI, and that was blatant on 3rd and 9. Guys that I didn't like in this game, Ramondre Stevenson, Jalen Polk, Layden Robinson. I know Mayo said like this was his best game. I don't know what he was smoking. I had him for 4 quarterback pressures. I had him for 10 minus plays in this game. I didn't think he was terrible. It's a tough matchup, but, you know, to go on and on about him, I don't know. Let's see. Defensively, did not like Daniel Ekawale. Again, against the run, he is a big problem there. I did not like either of the linebackers. You know, aside from the Tavai tip was a really nice play. He got back into his drop properly, unlike Miami. But for the most part, they were getting owned in the running game. Duggar is a down. Jalen Hawkins is a down, and that'll about do it.
Yeah, I was being hyperbolic with like the handful of targets for Antonio Gibson, but he's only had 18 targets in 13 games. This is somebody that you look back to just last year had 60 targets. The year before that, he had 58. The year before that, he had 52. In his rookie season, he had 44 targets. This guy should have at least 35 to 40 targets right now, double than what he has, and he should be playing more. All right, he's Greg. I'm Nick. Brutal game this past weekend. Demoralizing. Just a lot of adjectives you could use. But Greg has to go run to Felgramaz and talk about it even more. So I'm happy. I don't have to talk about it now. I'm done. This is it for me. But Greg has to be punished now for the next 2 hours. So, Greg, enjoy that. We'll be back later in the week, everybody.